Good evening, everybody. And if you're just tuning in, I want to thank you for your patience. I'm hoping to fix this next week. I did have Kevin and Annett here, and I had to contact our owner of the network, Joe Montaldo, to try and get this show on the road. And somehow, in the meantime, we have lost Kevin. So I'm hoping he can log back in. We're a half hour late. He only had an hour to share this evening. I didn't find that out till while we were waiting to go live. So I deeply apologize. I hope he will be able to log back on again. And for this, this has been 2 weeks of this, guys. So I'm hoping he will be able to come back on. In the meantime, if you're just tuning in, you are listening to the Angel Rock. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin, streaming to you from New Orleans, Louisiana. I want to remind people, if you're on Facebook, I will not be able to see the comments, but we also will not be streaming on our main channel for UPRN due to what we were hoping to have some of the topics we were going to be covered may not have been quite as a acceptable type of language that would be going on our main YouTube channel. So I am streaming on my YouTube channel in case you want to watch a show and you're listening. It's on youtube.com/C/C The Angel Rock with Lorilei Potvin. We are streaming on our usual Facebook channels as well as Twitter. We're on Twitch. I'm even going to try LinkedIn tonight, see how that goes. And I guess, you guys, for those of you that have followed my show before, you know this doesn't normally happen with my guests. So we're going to carry on with the show. Good thing I planned actually a show for another night, and we're going to cover those topics tonight with the hopes that maybe Kevin may be able to log back on. I hope so. And again, I deeply, deeply apologize about this. But sometimes this happens with live radio, and I also apologize because with this new hour, you guys are having to hang in there a half hour waiting for me to come live. So if you've never been here before, welcome. On my show, The Angel Rock, I say I cover all aspects, and I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to say I cover all aspects of many different topics. We have a positive spin. Sometimes I discuss anything within the supernatural realm, whether that be the paranormal, UFOs, ATs. I also cover topics like how to access your own intuitive gifts. We all have them. The power of the mind, the power of positive thinking, as well as what else? I also cover truth seeking, which was where we were going tonight. I apologize, guys. I've been working like crazy to get on here, so just got to take a deep breath here, calm down. But the guests that I do have on my show, I love to have people from all walks of life, and through what they do, either professionally or personally, they're passionate about it and they're making a positive change for humanity, which they are. Now, if Kevin is not able to join us tonight, I strongly urge you to check out his website. I'm going to grab that right now. Every Canadian should know this gentleman's name, what he has done for First Nations people. He's also issued a $10,000 reward for against our leader, I'll say, and also our Governor General. I've got my iPad here so I can see things tonight, and he is that is leading to the arrest and stop of what's going on in Canada here. Now with Kevin, give me one sec here. I sent this to myself. It is he has a book. He's written many books, actually. So the one book, though, that is quite popular, and you can get that for a free download from his website, is called Murder by Decree. So his website, I got to go through all my links here. Sorry, guys, is https :// Republic of Canada.ca. So I'll spell that for you. It's all one word. It's REP as in Peter, UB as in Bob, L as in Lion, IC as in Cat, OF as in Frank, K as in Kite, AN as in Nancy, A T as in Tom, A.ca. Good morning and welcome for joining me. I see you're on LinkedIn. I apologize if I don't get your name right. Jagavin Shastri, astrologer. So if you're joining us late, I apologize. We did have our guest here. We started a bit late. The show before us ran over, and somehow, some way, and this happens sometimes with live podcasting, we have lost our guest. Now I've sent him the link again. We'll see. He only had an hour to spend with us. I didn't find that out till just before we started the show. And this is the second week we tried to have him on. I should give you a little bit of background. He's an extremely targeted individual. I'm going to read his bio because I think it's important that, like I said, all people need to know this gentleman's name. Kevin Annett is his name. He is a fellow Canadian who is an author of the book, like I said, Murder by Decree, and which he has written as an uncensored account of the senseless murders of Indigenous children in residential schools in Canada and more. Kevin is a former pastor, and not by choice being a former pastor, as well as an activist, a humanitarian, and a voice for the First Nations people as well as humanity. He's written many, many books about his accounts. He is responsible for actually being able to bring about, how do I want to say this, the knowledge of what our previous Pope before Pope Francis was responsible for, including, I'll spell it for you because of some of the places we're on, MURDER, of children, as well as TORTUE of children, and many other crimes. And this Pope, before Pope Francis, chose to resign because I believe, as I understand from my good friend Karen Holton, who's had him on as a guest and connected us, that I believe it was Spain that was going to pursue charges. So, like I said, please check him out. Please check out his work. Please follow him. He's this extremely targeted individual. He's also a radio host. When you go to that website I mentioned, and I'll mention it at the end of the show, you will find out more about his work, more about what he's doing, because he has also been working within the auspices of common law, and he's taken it much further because I used to be on the International Tribunal of Conscience and Common Law, again with my fellow Canadian Karen Holton. We were represented by about 20 different countries, and we were working under common law, which existed long before the law that's here, and it's pretty well known, although a lot of people aren't aware of it because it's been around for so long. But it's well known, and it's pretty well the same around the world. And we took it as far as we could with our tribunal, and Kevin has been able to do much more. So please go check out his website. You will be able to download, I believe he has cease and desist that even the everyday citizen is able to serve. And he's taking this much further. The other thing I do want to mention to you guys too, there's been a lot of talk. There are some YouTube channels out there. It's Dr. Reiner Fulmich. He has done the opening statements of the infamous global trial, I'll say, that he is going to be presenting. And he's taking a lot of information from the public, but he has spent over the last year and a half with global lawyers from around the world receiving information, testimony, research papers, you name it, and put it together. And I won't say too much more about this, but I strongly urge you to check it out. And again, if you're just tuning in, I deeply apologize. I do not know what happened in between trying to get a hold of my producer. We did have Kevin here, and things have disconnected. So we've tried for 2 weeks. So I will try at a later date to have him on. Maybe what we'll even be able to do, as we realized we were in the same time zone, and where I am, it's a little later at night. I mean, we didn't get started here till 10:25, and we'll be done just before midnight tonight. So he was living in the Pacific time zone, as I had been led to believe. So it sounded like it was a good time for him. It was 7 o'clock. So there's a little bit of miscommunication. Sometimes that happens when all you can do is communicate via email. And like I said, with live radio, you kind of just got to go with the flow. But you know what? I guess Spirit must have maybe known things were going to work out this way. And speaking of Spirit, I said I was a little bit off my game starting. Just so if you haven't met me before, my name is Lorilei Potvin. I host the Angel Rock every week. It's a 2-hour show. I'm a Canadian psychic medium. I'm also a Crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner. I am a medical intuitive, spiritual teacher, and mentor. And I'm also a registered nurse, and I believe an activist or truth seeker in my own way, too. So I had a conversation with Spirit this afternoon, actually. I did some channeling. No, Spirit does not enter into my body when I channel. I just get into a quiet receiving position in the way that I'm clear my mind so I can hear. And Spirit shared a lot with me. We've got a lot going on in the world. Here in Canada, things are changing from moment to moment to moment. We knew things were going to get difficult with what was going on before they got better. But I connected with Spirit and I asked them, what are some of the things that we could share with the public that may be able to help them? And I have permission. I work with quite a few like-minded light workers, but two in particular right now that I'm going to be referencing is Debbie A. Anderson of Vibrational Energy. She's on Facebook. She has a YouTube channel, and she's a very gifted psychic medium. I also work with Ida Keatley, who is a very gifted psychic and medium as well, and healer. And together, actually, we are going to be doing a meditation / healing for the world, if you will, this upcoming Wednesday, February 8th. I believe I got to go from my mind, Debbie. If there's anybody in the chat, you can remind me. I don't think we put the banner out, but I believe it is at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it will be streamed to Debbie's Vibrational Energy YouTube channel and her Facebook page. And we're all going to be contributing something. So when I asked Spirit, what would you like me to share? And some of the things that they did share, and part of this is coming from Debbie, is what we're hearing in the world. We're seeing videos of injustices. We are hearing, depending on what you watch, a lot of misinformation. It evokes sometimes anger, sometimes disbelief. This is happening with our friends and family. It's been going on for over the past 2 years. And one of the things, this came from Debbie, was discernment. And I have been finding this as well in the name of the fact that a lot of trusted sources, maybe where we go for information, sorry, I kicked my stand there, that we're needing to really discern, meaning we're needing to look at where that's coming from. And I don't believe that, our trusted sources are necessarily leading us astray, but we need to kind of play detective, if you will. We need to stop, we need to slow down, take a breath, and then really dig into it and see where's this information coming from, and really verify whether this is the truth or not, because I think a lot of this is based in fear, and it's a normal human reaction, fear, especially when we don't know what's coming, a fear of the unknown, a fear of I received a message the other night actually that somebody had asked me what my thoughts were on it. And it was quite scary when you read this message. But when you broke it down and you looked at where it possibly could be coming from, it really kind of helped clarify things. And I'll go a little bit deeper into that. But some of the information that Spirit shared with me, so I got to put my glasses on to see. So there's a saying that I use, and I've used it for a long time, and I believe it did come from Spirit. And what it is what we perceive, we tend to believe, and becomes our reality, right? So think about when you were a child. You probably had a lot of beliefs. I don't want to say what kind of beliefs, just in case we have any young children. I don't want to, cause any issues with that. But what I'm saying is we had a lot of beliefs in childhood that as we've grown up and we've started to live life, we've started to have more experiences, we've started to realize that those beliefs change. It's kind of like what's going on right now. But what happens is the world is awakening. Still people that may not awaken then, but that's their journey, right? But there's a lot of people that are. A lot of people that are sitting with, and I've heard this many times with, oh my goodness, everything I believed was a lie, or what have you. So I guess what I'm trying to say when I mention what we believe, or sorry, what we perceive becomes what we believe, and then it becomes our reality. We're very malleable as human beings. So I believe myself that once we get over that initial shock, and it doesn't have to just be your whole life, it can be anything in your life, maybe something you've always believed. And then maybe you find something to the contrary with such irrefutable proof that you realize, holy cow, that was wrong. So once we get over that shock, and we always have a choice, right? We can have a choice to find out more about what this new set of information is, and we can decide to start adopting this new belief, or we can still sit with that older energy. We always have that choice. But some of the things that Spirit has also been giving me with this influx of information that's coming on, as well as trying to use discernment, and I'm going to get a little deeper into discernment in a minute, is we can really be in a heightened state depending on how we look at the information that we're receiving. Some people get angry, some people tend to believe other options. I'm trying to be very careful with what I'm saying here, guys. That's why I'm saying it the way I am. But what Spirit's given me is, like, again, I said, slow down and try to let it flow like water, meaning let it wash over you. Just sit with it. And if you're angry, admit you're angry and let it flow. Let it go through you. A lot of people try to swallow it down. Maybe you're sad about it. So, what I'm basically talking about, or maybe it makes you really afraid, are these lower vibrational energies that when we hang on to them, these are the kind of things that can cause things like issues with health and what have you. I truly believe, even though I do come from a big PHARMA background, being a nurse, that the human body is completely capable of healing itself. But because of what we run into, whether it's through trauma, belief systems, it could be through something spiritual, many things that we encounter in our lives, that if we don't tend to let it flow, we tend to store it and it sits there. And if it's a lower vibrational energy, it can tend to start festering, if you will, and causing dis-ease or disease. Okay, so it's part of that. But like I said, so that's and again, it may not be that clear. You may have to rehear this a few times. So when I'm talking about just letting it flow, so it's almost like, again, my good friend Debbie talking about discernment. So when we hear something, not reacting right away, but also if it resonates with you, to do some information seeking. This is what I'm seeing in front of me, but is there other things going on that I may not be seeing? Is it drawing my attention in one direction when there's something else going on behind the scenes, if you get what I mean? So the other thing that's really come up, and I don't think that this is just applicable to light workers, I believe this is for everybody. There was a new phase or movie documentary that came out probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was called Earthing. And it was presented like it was this amazing, incredible new healing technique, and many, many stories of people that had utilized this technique and how amazing it was. Why had we not heard of this before? We have. It's been around for centuries, earthing. For those of you that may not have heard it before, what it involves is basically removing, if you can, your clothing, your socks, your shoes, and getting right onto the soil of the earth. In the light worker community, we tend to call it grounding or energetic grounding. So Many of us are aware of this, a lot of people aren't. But I do believe that in this 3D existence where we live on Earth, it's a duality existence, meaning we have light and we have dark, we have cold and we have hot. So you get what I'm saying. But I also believe, as the biological organisms on this planet, human beings, we are meant to be in balance. And I'm talking physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. So when we are out of balance, that's when we experience things like stress. And again, just like I mentioned a few minutes earlier, disease. So one of the things that can really help to maintain balance is grounding, or like the term I mentioned, earthing. Okay. And we're all capable of doing it. So what it involves is, and especially people that practice grounding, is, and believe it or not, it's going to sound crazy if you've never heard this technique before, but it works, and you can prove it to yourself. Especially if you've got another individual and you're just standing there, you're not thinking about being grounded. Maybe you're really stressed, or you're not feeling well, or might be maybe depressed or sad. You're sort of in a lower vibrational energy. And you can try this experiment with a friend. Is ask your friend if they can sort of just gently nudge you off balance. Most times if you were in that state, it's very easy to do. But once we then decide to incorporate what I'm talking about with grounding, that doesn't take very long, and then you have a friend try to then gently nudge you over, you will prove to yourself that this works. So one of the easiest ways to do grounding is, you don't have to be outside, but it is a great place to be, because just being out in nature can be very grounding. Is how I teach it is, I get people to stand, take a couple deep breaths in and out. I get them to focus on usually somebody that they love. Other people use the practice of gratitude. Kyle Gray is one of those. He's an angel guide. He's from Scotland. He's wonderful. Feel free to check him out. He's amazing. Anyways, you focus on something which then, in the light worker community, you would call that raises your vibration. I believe that energy is one of the most powerful emotions we've ever can experience. So I get people to focus on someone they love, and then using your imagination, you imagine sending that love right down to your feet. So your feet are going to be on the ground. You can be sitting like I am, you can be standing. You could even be laying down once you get used to it. But you're going to imagine that you're sending that love, and as it gets to the soles of your feet, as they're touching the ground, that tree roots, okay, are growing. You can make them anything you want, any color. The thicker, the deeper, the better. And you're going to imagine these, okay? And if you can't imagine, sometimes just looking at a picture of tree roots will help you visualize it. Or you can just think about it, whatever one of those works for you. But you're going to send it to the center of the earth. And when you send it to the center of the earth, sometimes people imagine a big crystal in the middle of the earth. I like to consider, if you will, Mother Nature or Gaia. And you're going to connect with whatever that thought is. Whether you can just picture it being the center of the earth if you want. But I like to picture it myself as, like I said, Gaia. Some people use crystals. You can get really imaginative too. You can imagine plugging into the earth. You can imagine, I like to connect to Gaia's heart with my roots, if you will, that I'm imagining when I'm grounding. This takes longer, by the way, to explain than it does to do. So once you're doing that, okay, and you're thinking of someone you love, you're sending that love, or you can even use, if you're really angry once you've tried this a few times, but the first time, use it focusing on someone you love or gratitude. So you're sending all of that through those wonderful tree roots you've imagined to the center of the earth. You're going to connect with, whether it's a center, Gaia, a crystal, whatever it may be. And then imagine that whatever you've connected with at the center of the earth, they are then going to send that back up through you. Okay, they're going to send it to you, and you can imagine it as love being sent back to you, or gratitude, it's going to be something positive being sent back to you. Okay. And just sit with it for a few minutes. And then afterwards, after you've tried this, I have a video on this too. I will give you guys by the end of the show a connection to my video channel because I actually talk about quite a few of these techniques. It's called grounding and gritting. After you do this, ask your friend to then, it could be a family member, to give you that little nudge again. You will be utterly amazed how strong and steadfastly you stand there, whereas a few minutes before you did this technique, they could kind of nudge you over. That's because we're meant to work with the earth. We're meant to be on this planet in balance. So what I've been teaching some people too is once you try it, and I get a lot of questions of, well, how often do I have to do it? Like, when do I have to do it? Like, you know, how long is it going to last? Well, that's the beauty of it all. You're the master and creator of your own techniques. So you can ask as you're sending, your tree roots down to the center of the earth, please connect this for as long as good for my highest good, or I'm going to be going into a stressful meeting, please help maintain it, whatever it is. Like I said, the video goes over it in a lot more depth, but the reason why I'm mentioning this is many of us do use these grounding techniques. The other thing, before I get into some different grounding techniques, a lot of people ask, well, what does ungrounded feel like? And I've made actually some notes on that. And I did it just because I wrote quite a bit here from Spirit. And once Spirit gets going, I almost can't even read my own writing. Sorry, I'm going to go through here. We went through this. Hang on, I've got to get to my notes. So the other thing is grounding can be used whenever you're going to feel like some of these things. So some of the things that can cause you to be ungrounded or feel ungrounded, what it feels like. You're anxious. Maybe you've suffered from PTSD. So anytime you hear that trigger, God forbid, or what have you, you're feeling kind of spacey. Maybe you're feeling angry, but you don't know why you're feeling angry. Chronic pain can cause a lot of ungrounding. Anger, feeling helpless or hopeless, scattered. And I always joke when I'm talking to someone and then I notice something and I'm like, oh, look, there's a car. It's not that I'm feeling scattered. My brain works so quickly, it's going a mile a minute. But say you are one of those people that you're talking and all of a sudden it's like, what? Squirrel? Squirrel? That can help with it, can help streamline things, sort of ground your energy. You know what I mean? Sort of make you feel more focused, if you will. The other things I've been finding with a lot of people, they're feeling very stuck. They are feeling like they have no energy. They are absolutely drained. Can help with that. Let me see what else I've got here. Feel like you're swimming through mud. So meaning you're just so exhausted, you don't know why you're exhausted, yet you go to bed at night, you can't sleep, and your mind is racing the minute your head hits a pillow. All of those things can help with grounding when you practice grounding. So what I usually suggest to people, and I don't give you a bunch of steps to follow, the video is much longer than what I'm going through right here, is I talk with people about crafting it through their own design. I also walk you through a bit of a meditation in that video. And I suggest to people, it literally takes seconds to do versus me explaining in the video, as well as what I've just explained here. And I suggest people do it first thing in the morning. And it, like I said, before your feet hit the ground and you're off running. I don't know if most of you probably are like that. I know my day is like that. The minute I'm up, I'm off and running. I'm so busy. So that's when I would suggest to do it. Or again, if you're starting to feel like some of these ways I've suggested, and that's not just the be all to the end all list. You can use Google for this, look it up, ask what the signs of being energetically ungrounded are, and you will be amazed. You'll probably say, oh my goodness, yeah, I felt like that. I felt like that. And it'll really help you. Now, some of the things besides this technique I've taught, just sort of gone over briefly, and it'll go over in more depth on the video. And again, it's just on my YouTube channel. the Angel Rock with Lorilei Potvin, or you can look up the Angel Rock or my name, and my YouTube channel will come up. And the video is called Grounding and Gritting. And some of the other techniques that you can use is getting out in nature. Don't turn your phone on, or if you need it with you and you're going for a walk in the woods, but you need your phone just in case, tuck it away so that you're not listening to it going off 20 times with notifications. You're there to breathe in the fresh, beautiful air, listen to nature. One of the really beautiful things I love to do, depending on where you connect and you are out in nature, is listen to the different sounds. Many of us walk through the woods, but we don't stop and listen. I think that that's why you'll see like these videos of people that are in a tent at night, and it's in the middle of nowhere, and how terrifying it gets because there is no light. Because how many of us actually stop and listen to the sounds? Never mind that there are a lot of more different sounds at nighttime than there are in the daytime. But it really helps even when you're wanting to connect to your own intuition and listen. You get used to hearing different sounds and noises and connecting to those and identifying them. One of my mentors, I just thought of this, also taught me when you're listening to a song or one of your favorite songs, see if you can pick out the different instruments and focus on those instruments during the song. For example, focus on the bass. Is there bass playing in that song that you're listening to? Is there, can you hear the lead guitar versus the rhythm guitar or the drums or what have you? It gets you paying attention to the little things and starting to really be able to focus rather than the whole song, if you will. Some of the other techniques that you can use crystals, and there is a plethora of crystals out there that you can use. So I've listed a few for you. And for those of you, I've actually met people, depending on who's watching this, that maybe have never known what crystals were or understood what they were. I like to call them source or nature's gift to humanity. And I've had people say, isn't that just a bunch of woo-woo kind of, you know, when people even ask me what woo-woo is. And we've all met people like this, and this is with no judgment, and we need all kinds of people to make the world go round. But there's those people that are very talking about really kind of astral, higher vibrational type concepts, and you've heard it before. People will say that person doesn't live in the real world. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that's what I would attribute to the word woo-woo. But it's been proven scientifically that crystals have an energy and a vibration, just like anything else, and they do work. I'm going to pull one of them out now. It's a fake. I didn't plan this. I just keep this by my bed. We have orgonite generators that can help negate the effects of they can help with grounding. They can also pull away the effects of EMF. This is actually made by my friend Karen Holton. So if you look her up, you will find her website. They're beautiful, beautiful pieces that she has. So please check her out. But they have like metal file shavings. There's different crystals in here. She knows I love angels, so I got one with an angel. There's usually a bit of a transmitting type of wire, like a copper. I have another one here too. I keep them right by my bedside always, because we get EMF from everything, believe it or not. Our phones, anything with Bluetooth. And believe it or not, if you look up research, you will see that it can definitely have an effect on the human body. Now this one, everybody that knows me knows I love skulls. So this one has a skull in it. So you can use crystals. Some of the ones I'm going to talk about that you can use are, sorry, I'm looking for them here. Agate, excuse me, Apache tears, rubies, smoky quartz is a great one. I love quartz myself because being a crystal Reiki energy healer, one of the things I use a lot of crystals with that is that with quartz, it can embody and hold the energy of any type of crystal. And different crystals are used for different things. I'm wearing a crystal right now. I'll mention it in a minute. Black tourmaline I've always been taught if you really don't know a lot about crystals, usually the ones that are more darker, earthier colored, those are the ones that can really help with grounding, but that's not the only kind. There's bloodstone, it's called. Hematite is another one. Now, you guys might have seen it. Some people call it hematite. It's got like a magnetic charge. They're dark in color, very, very almost black, but they look like they've got almost a mirror finish on them. I've seen those quite a bit out in just generalized shopping, so I know they're quite common. Jade, many of the jasper family, jet, which is another black crystal, the many types of obsidians, onyx, which is another black crystal, pyrite. Now, you may have heard it by its name, fool's gold. That can also help, and they all have different properties when it comes to grounding. Another one that I really like is shungite, and I think I have the disc here. They make them so that I think I do anyways. It might be on my phone. Um, but I'm positive it's here. No, maybe not. But you can buy shungite to help, and believe me, you can get meters to measure EMF, and you'd be surprised how much EMF comes off your phone. You can attach a shungite disc to help, I guess, buffer or ground some of that energy. We even use that term in when the electrician world or the electrical world. With electricity, we need a ground, like with a plug-in or what have you, right? Well, human beings are electrical beings. Our hearts work on electrical charges as well as electrolytes have a positive or negative charge. So that's why I'm talking about grounding. That's one of the things that Spirit wanted me to talk about. And the reason why, again, is especially with what's going on energetically around the world, around us individually. There's a lot of change going on. Never mind, I mean, there's so many things we could get into about this, but that's why it's important, self care. And it'll really help us cope with a lot what's going on. Like I said, there's so much division, arguing. Um, people are arguing about things because it triggers us, because somebody believes one way, somebody believes another. You get cancel culture out there that's starting. We are really living in a different world than we were even 5 years ago. And, trying to learn how to navigate it, never mind what's allowed to be said, what's not allowed to be said, that can create a lot of stress. And even stress, how many times do we say, I think years ago it used to be, oh, my nerves. Oh, my nerves are terrible. I think it's just been replaced with the word, I'm feeling so stressed. What it means is we're feeling unsettled, we're feeling unwell, we're feeling overwhelmed. Grounding can help or can help with that. Just a few more that I wrote here. I'm trying to see. Petrified wood, believe it or not, is a crystal. So one of the best ways I suggest to people, especially if you're new to the world of crystals, is depending on where you live, but most places have at least one metaphysical store. If you don't, there's many you can find online. Take a look at their reviews, and even if you're not able to shop in person, a lot of these businesses, if they're still open, you can call them and talk to them. Describe, I'm new to the world of crystals. This is what I'm going through. I've heard that they're good. They can help with many things in life. And the person that usually works there is very knowledgeable about them and will probably be able to suggest some different options for you. There's crystals in every budget, every color. If you're going in personally, you can ask somebody what might be good for, say, grounding or even healing. I mean, there's so many different uses for crystals. Or a lot of times I walk into a store and I just see what draws me. It can be drawers and drawers or rows of different crystals, and I just see what draws me towards where am I being drawn to, and how do I feel when I'm near this crystal. How does it make me feel? Does it make me feel relaxed? Does it make me happy when I look at it because it looks beautiful? Whatever that may be. And then trust. It's kind of like letting it flow. Trust what we're receiving. We all have that inner voice, and believe me, we're going to get into a little bit of this too about your body knows the answer. So does your higher self, whether you want to call it your higher self, your subconscious, no matter what it is. It's just, again, when I started this conversation about getting out in nature, listening to different sounds, listening to a song and trying to identify the different instruments, it's kind of the same thing about retraining ourselves to hear that inner voice, to trust our intuition, to trust what we're hearing, and to really try to take deep breaths if we react negatively to something, because there's usually a whole lot more below the surface, if you will. Spirit just gave me the vision of that iceberg where you see just the tip, and then down below, there's a whole lot more. So that's what some of this, what it's about. I'm just going through my notes here. That's what happens when I get stuff from Spirit. Like I said, guys, it just comes so quickly, and then I try and read my own writing. Um, Let me just read this for a second. Um, oh, the other word they gave me. This is coming up a lot, and I think what I'm hearing, and again, this is just my opinion. Now, depending on what your belief system is, a lot of people have a lot of fear when they hear the word apocalypse. Now, depending on what definition you look up, apocalypse really means just revealing which was once hidden. And what I've written here from Spirit is exactly that, but also which in turn ends an old way of living to move forward into a space better suited for self / country / humanity. And I believe that that's where we are right now. So, is it the end of the world or end of life? No. Is it the end of how we were living before? In many ways, yes. You kind of pulled the lid off Pandora's box, if you will. The world has changed, and that does happen. None of us really like change because, again, it's kind of the unknown versus the old way, which we all knew very well. We knew what to expect, we knew how to navigate it. And we're moving forward, I think, into an age where a lot of things are going to be new. A lot of things are going to be uncertain. A lot of things, in many ways, relationships, people we connect with, I think are also may fall away. And although that may be very sad, and I just had a conversation with somebody today about the fact that during the times of my life that when things have seemed to be the worst they've I've ever encountered, that once I get over the initial shock and grief, and that's okay, we do grieve it, regardless of what kind of change it is. There's certain things that we go through as human beings before we get to a place of acceptance. And what happens with that, that once we get to that place of acceptance, if we're able to, and some time has passed and we look back, most of us can see, depending on how you look at life, whether the glass is half full or half empty, that what really happened there was something was removed that no longer served our highest purpose. It could be our life, it could be where we're meant to be in the future. And it's usually replaced by something that better serves us. Not always, but usually, depending on how you look at it or why it happened. The other thing that I find where a lot of people go is they want to ask the question when it comes to religious dogma about how could our higher power let this happen? And again, um, and then we get into deeper topics that I wasn't going to talk about tonight. So I'll just mention it maybe for another time. Could be Wednesday night when we meet together with Debbie and Ida for the global meditation. Is that I don't believe, and again, it's just my belief system, that your higher power, whatever your belief system is, for me, it's God. I respect all people's belief systems. But I believe that we are infinite, that we are here in this lifetime right now just having a human experience, that our bodies are not just who we are. We are so much more. And when we move forward through different lifetimes, I believe that when we have an incarnation, such as every one of us that's here right now, we've we've set forth something to learn to help grow our knowledge, our experience as a soul. And again, we have the choice to screw it all up. We're probably going to come back and do it all over again. But that for in order for us to learn and grow, And this sounds really screwed up, but I think if you think about it, you'll see where I'm coming from. When life is wonderful, it's amazing. We've all been there. Maybe you're just newly in love. Maybe, the birds are singing, the flowers are growing. You've never felt so happy. Doesn't mean if you're just in love, but most of us have experienced that type of feeling at one time or another in our life. The first thing most of us say is, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. I never want it to end, right? So we're not in a place that we're going to be doing a lot of things to make changes, are we? But eventually, just like life goes on, it's kind of like that new series in that book series, The Wheel of Time. It just keeps going around and around. That life's not static. So what happens is it'll swing to the left. Maybe that's the euphoria, we're ecstatic, we're happy. And then it'll swing the other way. It just sort of keeps swinging, or if you will, it goes in a circle. When I think people, humanity, are faced with a decision to make a change, to try to evolve, to try to grow, is when we go through something extremely difficult. It could be painful. It could make us extremely angry. Whatever that may be, maybe we just want to strive to be better people. Whatever that might be, though, that's when I believe that as a human being, we make the decision about whether it's something horrific we've gone through, and we say, I don't ever want anybody to go through what I just went through. And we see people start these incredible, say, you know, support groups or foundations that help other people or counseling, whatever it may be. So it sounds a little screwed up, doesn't it? That that's when we decide we're going to make a change. And a lot of people, some people don't. Some people sit within that energy. Maybe they've had a really, really horrific childhood, and they're stuck with the childhood that they've gone through. That it's painful to have to go back and do that inner work and start unpacking it, unraveling it, and working and healing it. And but we always have a choice. And I keep thinking about people. There's John Walsh, for example, that started America's Most Wanted. I'm a parent, whether you're a pet parent, whether you're a human parent of another human being, whether you're looking after others. All of us have had somebody other than ourselves that we love deeply, right? And I just couldn't even imagine what he went through when he lost his young son, Adam. But in the horrific grief, him and his wife at the time decided, I don't want anybody else to ever go through what we went through as parents. And look what he started. Now, again, I'm not saying everybody has this international TV show that millions and millions of people make. It's the little things that count too. It's anything that you do, I think, to make this world a better place. And don't get me wrong, that sometimes there's people that just want to be better people or they've got a dream that they want to fulfill. But that's when we make change, and that's when we start striving, I think, to do better for humanity. Anyways, I got off on a bit of a tangent there, guys, but like I said, that's when I was talking about the quote I said when we were talking about apocalypse. And I kind of think that that's what we're going through right now, with the fact that what was once hidden is being revealed, whether it's where you live and the leaders that have been managing for centuries, or different parties, if you will. Um, Whether there's leaders and gurus out there that we've looked up to, whomever it is, I think that where we are in life is it is revealing to us whom is actually coming from a true place, and others that may be coming from ego, greed, nefarious reasons, whatever that may be. And I'm not saying that with judgment, but I'm really seeing that we're given the option to choose by using our own discernment, if you will, our own brains, taking a look and saying, does this feel right? What doesn't feel good about this? Is this making me feel unsettled? Something just doesn't seem right about this. And really taking a look at that. And I think that that's what this year is about. Every year we've had different things that have happened, especially with what we've gone over the last 2 years. And again, we have a choice, right? And another saying that I really, really love, I'm wearing one now. I made this shirt, by the way, I won't read it, but um, we've had a choice here in Canada. And I'm so glad I support what's going on 100% because it promotes unity, it promotes peace, it promotes love. And part of what I believe right now is important for humanity is to put our differences aside, to recognize that we really are part of each other, that it's more important about service to others than it is service to self. With that being said, though, many of us, and I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about the global us, are very good at giving. Very, very good at giving. But when I was talking at the beginning about balance, that we're not so great at receiving. And whether it's an inner voice that we hear that that's selfish or whatever it may be. And I use this analogy often. And when I was younger, I think we were flying to Florida. I was about 12. And I remember the flight attendant standing up before the flight and talking about in the event of a cabin pressure change, the oxygen mask will come down. And we ask that before you assist any of those traveling with you that may be small children or elderly or people who aren't able to put their own masks on, that you put your own mask on first. And I remember for the longest time, I used to think, well, that's really selfish. Why would I do that? Of course, I would help other people. And then it hit me. We put our own masks on first because if we don't, we might be able to help one or two people. But if we put that mask on ourselves, we are so much able to help more people than if we just went ahead and just stuck it on one or two because we're looking after our own needs first. So this is where I'm going with this is it's very important, I think, when I've talked a little bit about inner healing, working on a lot of issues. We all have issues. Working with, say, a mentor or somebody that's does this kind of work, or like things like I'll mention Crystal Reiki, or counselors, or maybe you've got a trusted friend that you can work with and talk about this. Maybe you're able to do this work yourself. Whatever it is taking a look at, and a lot of people maybe don't even know where to start. But one of the things I'll tell you physically, when we have pain, that's our body's language, I believe, of saying to us, to our frontal lobes here, hey, there's a problem here. I need you to pay attention to it. I need some attention here. Maybe we've got some trauma from being a child and it keeps coming up every time we have a trigger, or we start talking about it. And all of a sudden, as we start to talk about it, we keep going through the same cycles of the same story over and over and over. That is a message, I believe, whether it's from the psyche, your inner child, whatever it may be. Hey, we're kind of stuck here. We need some help. And what I'm saying, I'm oversimplifying it, is, but working on those things that keep coming up. And we all know what those inner issues are. The rest of the world may not know, but we do. Okay? It's the same thing, and I would never ever talk about somebody without their permission. But for example, somebody that I care about very deeply, a friend of mine, sent me a message, and they said they had received this from other intuitives. And this message came from a place of, and I won't give out the message because I don't want to give away anything. But basically, it was the end of the world's coming because people aren't waking up quick enough, and God's not happy about that. And again, and that's not how the message went. I'm changing it. But what my point is, it was really scary when you read it, especially if those are people, say, that are known to be intuitives or psychics or whatever it is. And there's nothing wrong with checking in with people you trust or people that you care about and saying, hey, what do you think? And I know that with connecting with spirit, spirit just wouldn't give you that kind of message. Um, they might tell you something like that, but they're not going to be that blunt about it or say that this is coming from a punishment perspective. So my whole point was, once we talked about this for a bit, is I suggested maybe take a few deep breaths, and then when if you're able to maybe clear your mind a bit, and then ask yourself the question, how does this feel to me? What do I think when I hear this message? Even as simple as, does this seem true to me? And the first answer you get, take it. Because your body always knows, so does your inner self. And sure enough, and this person shared the most beautiful answer when they had done this, and their answer was, to me, God is love. And they got it. They got it. We all have that intuition, is what I'm trying to say to you. We all have that. We all have that inner voice. It's just getting used to hearing it, trusting it. And I often challenge people to just trust it for a week. And people say, well, how will I know? Well, most of us talk to ourselves in our mind. We do. It's inner chatter. But I believe when it's coming from our higher self, it could be coming from guides and angels or whatever. We all have a support team. None of us were ever sent here on our own. Believe me, we all have a support team. And when I say that inner guidance comes, say you're laying at night alone in bed, it's quiet, you can't sleep. I guess you could get up and do a grounding technique, yes. But the other thing is, you're laying there, you're pondering over a problem, and no, there's no solution in sight. You looked at it 6 ways to Sunday. All of a sudden, this stroke of genius comes out of nowhere, and it's the answer. It's the answer. You know it. You know it's the answer. You get really excited about it. You follow it, and everything works out. That is your inner guidance. That is your intuition. That is your higher self, if you will. And I believe, and again, with being teaching people to hear this inner voice, and again, we're not all 100% correct. None of us are any better than anybody else. And I don't care who that is in your life. Nobody is any better than anybody else. We are all a part of each other. I usually find, and I've done it myself, we put people up on pedestals, and usually the longer you get to know them, the more they usually fall off those pedestals because they're human too. But I have found, anyways, getting back to this inner voice, that if we're able to sit still, we're able to take some deep breaths, we're able to clear our mind just for a second and focus on the question and ask it. And then trust with that first answer that you get and follow it. See what happens. It's usually meant in love. It's usually meant for your highest good. And if you're wondering, people will hear, well, this is another famous one I usually hear in the light worker community. And many of us are awakening. That's what I'm talking about with, excuse me, the light worker community. You need to banish the ego. Well, we all have an ego. And we know when the ego takes over because um, just that statement I told you about, that sort of more or less comes from ego, a fear-based perspective. Now, I don't believe we're given anything without a purpose. So what I'm saying is I believe that the ego has a purpose. And for the longest time, and I've met many people that have been told by various mentors or maybe, reading books, learning, going along this path, that we have to banish the ego. The ego is there for a purpose. And I had a mentor that taught me something that I love, and I love to share it. And she said, how about we just make friends with our ego? So, meaning acknowledging that it's there, um, and acknowledging that something may come up from the ego. But instead of trying to shut it down, it's kind of like human nature. The more we try to stop something, the more it keeps coming up. So again, another discussion for another time. And again, guys, this is just off the top of my head, and I apologize if you are tuning in. And I'm going to tell you. Also, I should mention, we do have a YouTube channel, UFO Paranormal Radio. I'm normally on that channel. We are now able to have memberships again. We did have a previous channel that way, but what happened was, well, just things happened with YouTube that have been happening to many YouTubers. So we had to restart a new channel. So I've already submitted some of my previous shows that were only either unlisted or weren't able to be uploaded on YouTube, but they are on our membership site. So when you subscribe to our membership site, you get content that isn't available on the regular channel. There's many incredible hosts on here that do many different types of shows for you name it, we've probably got a show for it. So I encourage you to check that out. We are also able to accept super chats on that channel. So when you support us financially, it helps us bring different and better content to you. It also helps the station, the way of equipment, you name it, as well as what was I going to say with that? Sorry, lost my train of thought there for a second. Um, like I said, it benefits you. Excuse me. So when you help us out, you get something in return. So please make sure that you let people know about UPRN or United Public Radio Network. We're carried anywhere where there's talk radio or podcasts. And again, I deeply want to apologize if you're just tuning in. We did have Kevin and Annett before the show. The shows before us ran over, and I was trying to get this show on the road because I just found out before we went live that Kevin would have only been able to be here for an hour. And unfortunately, somehow, some way, we got disconnected, and I only am able to get a hold of him through email. So I'm hoping that maybe in the future we'll pre-record a show that'll work better for his time schedule, and then we won't have to worry about these live connection issues. And again, I really appreciate your patience with this and for your understanding. For those of you that have watched my show before, you know that this doesn't happen. So I wanted to bring that up with you all again. Now, many of you are probably wondering what's going on in Canada. Like I said, I talked a little bit about some of the spiritual stuff. I'm going to say some of this for Wednesday night with when I'm doing the live healing and meditation with Debbie A. Anderson and Ida Keatley. So, what's really surprised me is that many independent news reporters have really reported some erroneous stuff, including that the reason why this all started in the first place with our truck drivers was they weren't happy about the mandates that were out there that were specifically geared towards their profession. That is not true because most of the organizers of this are jabbed. They were able to cross back and forth across the US to Canada. That was not the issue. What they are standing up for, and I'm sharing this with you, I'm hoping you will share it with other people, is they are standing up for the right to be able to make the decision whether or not you would like to put something in your body versus the government telling you. As well as a lot of you may not be aware. I don't see a lot of this, but I've seen a few comments. I don't share a lot, but I did share something from our only biggest independent news source, Rebel News. We do have other great channels like Press for Truth, and there's many other small independent news podcasters and radio show announcers out there that will talk about this kind of stuff. But a lot of you may not be aware that 99% of any of our main news, or legacy news as they're now calling it instead of mainstream, is 100% funded by the government. So we've also had something called Bill C-10 pushed through by our illustrious absent leader. He went around our parliament, he went around the Senate, he also drafted some letters, and it's very quietly been put in. What Bill C-10 stands for is that the government now controls what Canadians see, hear, and watch on whether it's the internet, TV, and radio. We also have Bill C-36 going through, and that is absolutely insane. And it's well on its way to being pushed through. Just 1 second and have a quick drink. With Bill C-36, again, the government will control what is hate speech. It's very loosely written. There isn't a task force for this. The government will decide. And if they decide what you post in their eyes is hate speech, I mean the global you, meaning in the way of Canada, that you can be charged with up to, I believe it's $50,000 to $75,000 fine, as well as either or as well as go to jail for 10 years. And the provision that I keep hearing is lifted, and then I get whisperings of no, it's been put back in. So I guess we'll have to see the final draft of what this Bill C-36 is. And it reminds me very much of the movie Minority Report is, say you have somebody that decides that they think that another individual might potentially post something they consider to be hate speech. That individual, without posting it in any way, shape, or form, can potentially, again, be charged with the same type of fine and or go to jail for 10 years without ever doing it. So it's a very scary place. Where I live in Ontario, we are still under a version of lockdown. The province next to me, and a lot of the things have been lifted because of what's been going on in our capital city, Ottawa. As of New Year's Eve in Quebec, you had to be in from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. It was a curfew. You also were basically in prohibition if you chose not to get jabbed, and were not allowed to purchase alcohol, or, as you well know, the green stuff, I'll call it, is legal here. I also know that you were not allowed to go into any stores, not even big box stores, without your jab papers. The other thing is the province next to that, they weren't allowed to go into grocery stores or anything of that nature to buy food. A lot of people are on a budget. A lot of people aren't working because people are losing their jobs. And that's what this whole thing was about, was having the choice rather than saying you've been given a choice. Either you get the jab or you lose your job. Many people were forced to get this because they had to keep a roof over their children's heads or their families' heads or be able to feed them. And that's really not a choice if you think about it. Now, I know people feel very strongly one way or the other about this. I respect that. I also respect the fact that everybody should be able to have an opinion. So that is why there is quite a bit of support. Not everybody feels this way, for the truckers. And what I think they've done, and the whole world is watching, many other countries have now followed suit. We have Australia, we have the US, we also have truckers on the border of Alberta and the state of Montana. It's going on in almost every province here in Canada. They're not able to go to Ottawa. There are more truckers coming. And many things have been legislated into place, including late last night that the city of Ottawa was declared in a state of emergency. Meanwhile, if you look on social media, mostly on social media and independent channels over on YouTube, you will see people skating on the Rideau Canal, which is frozen. It's a river very close to Parliament Hill, playing hockey. People had rented bouncy castles. There was a dance party. Music and horns stopped long before, by 10 o'clock at the latest. I think it was going off even earlier. Things were turned down. Just people having a wonderful, great time. That's not what's being reported out in legacy media, but that is what is going on. And you can see that when you look. I think Tucker Carlson has done a great job of reporting what's going on. Sean Hannity, Jimmy Dore. I haven't watched Joe Rogan in a little bit, but I know he's mentioned it. So it's interesting to check out. And it's also been the impetus for other people to stand up. And again, the reason why I support it is because I believe it promotes unity, love, and peace. And realizing that when we stand up as one, when we unite, we put our differences aside. That's what it's about, right? So that's kind of what's going on here. Like I said, it's going on in Australia as well. I speak to people from Australia almost every day. And somebody just messaged me back this weekend, and they said there was well over 1.5 million people in Canberra in Australia. And that's what I encourage people. If this is something new that you've heard, as I always say to people, you don't have to believe a word of what I've said to you tonight, anything. But if something resonates with you, or you keep, you think, I don't think that's true, or I don't think that's right, please take a look. Please research yourself. Please. I have great respect for people that do that, that tell other people to do that. Sorry, my mouth is not working tonight, that do that. And I encourage people to go and take a look. When you do a search, please use different search engines. Take a look at what you find on one versus the other. Check different news sources and independent channels too. Take a look and see what you're seeing. Because I have been hearing from other people, or especially today, well, I haven't seen anything like that on, you know, TV. No, you're not going to see it on TV. So it's checking out independent sources and take a look. Really take a look. I think you'll be surprised. And regardless of whatever reason people may support it, there's been a few people who've been very negative about it. But yes, it is going to cause a little bit of pain for the people that are in Ottawa, and maybe even a lot of noise and what have you. But the way I've been looking at it is it's kind of short-term pain for long-term gain. And what I mean by that is, yeah, we could be potentially facing some pretty empty shelves, in the next couple of weeks as this goes on longer. But I'm willing to do that to have some of our freedom back, because I can tell you a lot of people I've talked to in different countries have no idea what's going on here. And I will tell you that I think as those in power get more desperate, more and more things happen. For example, excuse me, if you follow the real Pat King, he tends to update people quite a bit. And I believe that there was a decision made with the announcing a state of emergency, which it really is not. And again, I'm talking to people every day that are on the ground in there, so it's not me just making that decision. Um, I guess the fuel that was being delivered was confiscated by the authorities last night. Not all of it; it was mostly donated. It wasn't a huge blow to anything. Just before I came on live tonight, I heard the report. I believe it was Black Sheep Media. He's a Franco-Canadian, I almost said Canadien because I speak French too, Canadian. And he reported that apparently the authorities returned the fuel that was taken last night. I also know our opposition party, they got rid of the leader. They kind of had a revolt in there that some of these mandates are being reversed in some of the Midwestern provinces in Canada. So it is starting to have a little bit of an effect. Um, my whole point is, and you don't have to agree with me, but I also believe with what I talked about revealing what was once hidden and is now coming out into the open. With more and more people awakening very quickly, and we're having the biggest mass global awakening I believe we've ever had in the history of humanity, is that people again are starting to see once what that was hidden is now becoming very, very prevalent to them. That they're going to start to see that which once served us with the systems that we had in place are going to need to evolve as well for something that serves people better. Um, I really like what Dr. Renner Fulmich is coming out with and they have a plan of action. I can't even fathom what it'll look like, but they've been working on it for a year and a half. But I think Justin Trudeau's half-brother, who's been speaking out quite a bit, had a real point with the fact that we're utilizing systems globally that evolved and were put into place before even electricity existed. Whereas in this day and age, we can send a message. Guys, it's not the time to have a cat and dog fight. Sorry, my German Shepherd run through here. I was going to get my cord in 2 seconds here. Stop, doggy. Stop, doggy. Sorry about that. Um, anyways, what I was saying is where we are right now. If I wasn't on here, I potentially could send a message all the way over to Australia and they would have it in less than a second. And I think you had a good point. Back in the day, yeah, we did need to elect an individual to represent, hopefully, the views of the community, and that individual would travel and they would convene, and that's what's become government. Whereas Reiner is talking about the people leading the people, getting together and actually meeting the needs per where you live, if you will. And again, I know with living in northwestern Ontario, I don't live in the Arctic, I live smack dab right in the middle of Canada. Our needs are vastly different than the needs of, say, the individuals in southern Ontario and Toronto area. They have a massive population compared to what we do. Even the weather is different because Canada is so vast. Now, this wasn't just talking about Canada. It was talking about all around the world. And I think that if we're open to change and we're open to hearing what people have to say, and it makes sense to the majority of the people, that when we're able to go back to some kind of democracy where, yes, the majority of the people make that decision, it might be, it might be worthwhile to give it a try or at least hear people out. Like I said, we're in a vastly different situation than what we were in, centuries before. And it was interesting, there's two series coming out on TV, and they're both supposed to be into the future. One of them is a book series that my partner, the Dell, I should remind you, he is on Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with a delicious recipe, not a cooking show. He usually talks about many truth-seeking subjects or sometimes a little bit into the paranormal, depending on who he has on. Um, Anyways, he has told me about this book series since I've ever met him, The Wheel of Time. And it's now become a TV series. And as well, The Witcher. Many people are watching The Witcher, which is supposedly also is in future times. From what I understand, some kind of catastrophic earth event has taken place, and it looks like people have gone back almost to medieval times in the future. But when you really look at it, and I was watching a very interesting documentary with Del Bigtree. It wasn't really a documentary, it was one of his later shows called, I believe, CHASING and then COVID. And it was a 2 hour and 22-minute show. The first part of it, there's a 2.5 minute video on Twitter, under his Twitter account. If you can see it, believe me, it's incredible to see. Kind of sums up the first hour. The second hour, he was talking with an individual. I believe his name is Richard Armstrong. He has a very interesting computer that is able to predict with great accuracy world events. And this gentleman was talking about it. And it's quite a story. It's well worth watching. But he said the reason why it's been able to predict with such accuracy, I guess it has AI learning as time goes on. It took him, I think, 17 years to develop this as a very young man. And he's been working with this for over 40 years, this computer. He even went to jail for 7 years because of the country he lives in the US. They wanted his technology, and he said no. So he made some predictions for 2024 to 2026. And I know Dal Bigtree has kept saying, well, we know what the issues are. We should be able to make the changes. And he said, unfortunately, through time, and it almost made me really think of the Wheel of Time. He said we could go back to the fall of Rome. And he said the concepts there are identical to what's going on globally here. And it's like we just keep repeating and repeating and repeating the same scenario over and over and over again.
And this is why the computer is able, I guess it goes basically a lot on economics of the world and what's going on in different parts of the world. And I'm not doing it justice. Obviously, the gentleman that created this computer, and again, I believe his name is Richard Armstrong, um, he's got a book out there too. Excuse me. When he talks about it, it makes great sense. But I guess I found it very interesting that there's two TV series out there right now. And I also have a friend that brought up, for those of you who may have heard of the word predictive programming, which is out there saying that a lot of the things that we watch, which is called programming or programs, is that trying to kind of let us know what's coming, or what is it? And I had a friend that had a really unique concept. And he said, what if it's not predictive programming, but it's putting the suggestion of something out there, knowing that it'll reach a large audience. And regardless of whether somebody agrees with it or not, they're thinking about it. And that's what brings it to fruition. Because I believe this planet is a planet of manifestation, if you will. I believe that's why the law of attraction, or way back in the day when The Secret came out, works. Um, and he had a really good point, because that's kind of some of the things I teach about, that everything is energy. And one of the laws of energy is can neither be created nor destroyed, but transferred from one place to another. And everything is energy, including, excuse me, we're not taught to think this way, our thoughts, our words, and our emotions. There's a reason why you hear of things such as spells. Um, those are words, they're written words that are put down, and they have power, right? They have power because people collectively believe in it that use these spells. We call it spelling. Look into the name of Hollywood. Look what Hollywood is and what it's used for. When you start looking at some of these things and paying attention, just like we talked about paying early at the show, talking, listening to a song and trying to identify the different instruments in there. A lot of things have really been in plain sight. We just haven't paid attention. So have maybe subconsciously, as a population, manifested it, or what? It was certainly a different thing to look at. And again, when you start looking at things, I know it kind of sounds like I'm all, again, I'm going to use the word woo woo. I'm not really, because I'm going back to science. And when you look at it, anybody that's taken a basic science course, that everything is made up of atoms and ions and protons, and that's everything here. The other thing that's really cool, if you think about it, everything that we have on this planet that hasn't come from nature, okay? Somebody has thought that up and created it, right? If you think about it, every single thing somebody has thought up and created. The same thing is if you have an idea, and especially if more than one person has an idea, same idea, right? It's all energy. You're thinking about it, you're drawing it, you're making up prototypes. That's all putting energy into it. Maybe that's why this all comes to fruition. I don't know. All I'm going to say is, to end this all off, is that I want to make sure I'll go through my notes first, just in case I forget anything here. Well, there is one other thing I wanted to add. It's, what can I do? What if I feel helpless and I'm sitting on the sidelines? I've had people ask me, well, what if I write letters? What if I do this? What if I do that? The one thing I want to leave you with is, and I've said this to many people, you need to do whatever you feel you are led to do that makes you feel in your heart. So if you feel like you need to write a letter, try to write it as kindly as you can to get your point across, but write those letters. Do what you need to do. Talking about different concepts or things that you believe in by sharing that with like minded people, or sharing information, helping to share about other people sharing information, whatever that may be. What I'm trying to say is, we don't all have to be present in one geographical location to feel like we're doing something. Okay. I believe also that sometimes, especially with what's going on, family doesn't end in blood. That's another one of my favorite sayings from a show I used to watch called Supernatural. I don't watch a lot of TV, but that was one of the sayings from it. And it's true. And maybe it's a time that if we're not able to get through to those that we love and those we care about, and there's a lot of fracture and divide, sometimes time, a little bit of space helps heal wounds. But also finding the people that are like-minded, that support you, that are going to uplift you. We all have difficult days. Um, Prayer works. If you're a believer in prayer, prayer does work. It's words, it's thoughts, it's emotion. Putting that out there, and sending it out. It's your belief in a higher power. You know what I'm saying? So every little bit that you do, that you feel in your heart led to do, that you know is meant in love, and it's meant for, with the intention for those that you're doing it for in their highest good. I don't think it can ever steer you wrong. You don't need permission. So if you feel like you are being led to do something, you're feeling helpless, you're feeling like you're not doing enough, you are doing enough by even just connecting with other people, talking with them, supporting them, doing what you feel led to do. And even though it may not feel like it's somebody organizing a massive global convoy, for example, that the whole world is watching, it's all little bits collectively that count. And that's what I want to leave you with is that you matter, you are important, you are here for a reason, and you are loved more than you could possibly know. So when I said that sometimes people aren't good at accepting, they're good at giving, it's a really cool analogy that somebody left me with, and I hadn't thought of it this way. When we're talking about balance, and we all know this, maybe we're a little short at the end of the month for a paycheck, and a good friend says to you, "Hey, I want to take you out for lunch. It's my treat." And you go, "Oh, no, 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 that's fine. No, I don't need to go." What if you said yes? And this is a different way of looking at it, because by you saying yes, you're helping that other individual to be giving to others rather than giving to self. So you're actually helping that person by agreeing to say yes. I'm not talking about taking advantage, but that's what I'm talking about with balance. By showing, if you want to call it the universe, whatever you want to call it, that you are open to receiving as well as giving. That by taking that offer from somebody to do something out of the kindness or love of their heart, that when you say yes, you're helping them by saying yes because they get it, that it's about giving to others rather than serving yourself. I want to thank you all so much for your patience with this. And again, I deeply, deeply, deeply apologize. I do not know what happened. I did have Kevin here, but with trying to get the show going live, the connection was cut. So we will try it, not next week. I'm not going to do that to you guys again, but in the future, near future, I will try and pre-record a show with him so that the time will work, that hopefully we'll be able to have 2 hours together and talk. And next week, hopefully, I haven't booked them yet. I've got some people in the pipeline here. We will have another amazing guest for you. Again, if you're just tuning in for the first time, I promise you this does not happen 2 weeks in a row, but maybe it was for a reason. And that's the other way of looking at things. When things happen that we don't anticipate and we don't expect, maybe they did happen that way because they were meant to happen that way. I want to remind you, please, to tune in to Debbie A. Anderson's Vibrational Energy, her Facebook page, as well as her YouTube channel. Myself, uh, Debbie and Ida Keatley will be doing a global meditation, as well as a fellow host off the network and good friend of mine, um, Kathy Bilski, on Friday nights with Quantum Leap. She will be doing a world global meditation on February 13th and February 14th. And she's asked if you can attend for 5 minutes, one night, both nights, the full hour. It will be 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific, and Eastern, that's 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. Now, I don't I don't know if she's going live yet. I believe she may while she's doing this, but if you can pop in and join it or watch the replay, the more people that are focused on the absolute exact same thing, the more energy that collects and the further it goes and the more stronger it becomes. So I want to thank you guys for joining me. If you ever want to get a hold of me for a reading, crystal Reiki session, what have you, you can get a hold of me on facebook.com/the Angel Rock. Now, I have two groups on Facebook, Paranormal University for all things paranormal. We've got people from all over the world there sharing podcasts, sharing experiences, investigations, or maybe you've got a question. Please check it out. And then I have the Angel Rocker Tribe for all things we talked about mainly tonight about manifestation, power of the mind, accessing your own intuitive gifts, and things like that. That's the Angel Rocker Tribe. Again, you ever have a show idea, a guest idea, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm on all social media platforms under Lorilei Potvin or the Angel Rock. And I will be back same time, hopefully earlier, and have another guest next week. Take care, everybody. Much love and light. Thank you for your patience.